The Constitutional Court will rule today on whether a secret ballot can be allowed during a vote of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma. The United Democratic Movement brought the court application following the president's controversial cabinet reshuffle in March. The application is also supported by a number of other opposition parties and civil groupings. And for more on the Concourt ruling, we cross live to our reporter Aldrin Sampear, who is at the Constitutional Court this morning. Aldrin, it's a very good morning to you. Talk to us about what the outcome is likely to be on this application.
Well, certainly, I guess it's anyone's guess at this point what the outcome would be, considering the amounts of submissions that have been made. Remember that when this matter was being heard here, we went all the way up until 8 o'clock in the evening. That's how many interested parties there were in this case, including friends of the courts as well. So it's anyone's guess what the outcome could be, considering some of the arguments that have been advanced by these various councils, but also, quite importantly, is the concessions that were made, considering the concessions from the advocates or the senior counsel that was representing the Speaker of Parliament, who said that it wouldn't seem as though that there's anything prohibiting the Speaker of Parliament from allowing a secret vote of in a vote of no confidence against the president. And I guess the question today, quite critically, is whether the omission of a secret vote in removing a president in the Constitution means prohibition. And that's a question that has been advanced by the main applicant in this matter, the UDM, which has argued that omission does not mean prohibition. It does not mean that because there is nothing in the Constitution that says that when the president is being voted out via a motion of no confidence, the omission of the word a secret vote, that means that the Speaker of Parliament doesn't have discretion. And the issue around discretion is another issue as well, is whether the Speaker has discretion. And as I indicated before, that you had the senior counsel representing the Speaker of Parliament was indicated that looking at the rules of Parliament as well as looking at the Constitution as it stands at the moment, there's nothing that says that the Speaker is prohibited. But quite importantly, Section 57 of the Constitution as well, which gives Parliament its powers to decide its own rules, which is something quite important. You have Chief Justice Mogoeng, who spoke about the removal of a judge, saying that, rather the removal of the president, saying that it is worse than adjunct status. And why should it be done in secret? Why should those who remove a president hide when they decide to make that vote? And you listen to other analysts, political analysts, like for instance, Stephen Friedman, who speaks about democracy and who speaks about the pillars of democracy, and one of them being transparency. And he argues, going as far as saying that even when the president is voted into Parliament, or rather voted as when Parliament rather elects the president of the country, whether it's one candidate or two or three candidates, that vote should remain open so that the electorate who voted those members of Parliament into Parliament know exactly who voted for which president or who voted for which candidate to become president of the country.
Aldrin, without preempting the outcome, of course, talk to us about the implications if the Concourt is to rule in favor of the UDM as well as other interested parties.
Well, quite interestingly is that when we tweeted, I sent out a tweet, I think about 2 days ago, when the Constitutional Court released the statement saying that it will hand down judgment this morning. And I sent out that tweet, and someone responded to the tweet saying that even if the judgment is in favor of the UDM, it will not be successful, considering the political paradigm that the ANC finds itself at the moment. The ANC comes from an NEC meeting. The post that NEC meeting, it was made clear that the ANC members will toe the political line. That's the message that came out of that NEC meeting. Remember that even when there was the breaking news story at that time with the Sunday newspapers carrying the story around the Gupta emails, and some saying within the ANC that that story was used to persuade members of the ANC's NEC to call for a vote of no confidence against the president, that was unsuccessful. Considering what happened during that NEC meeting, chances are that when we go to Parliament after this court ruling, of course Parliament will have to set a date in terms of when the motion of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma will be debated and when that vote will be taking place. It seems as though that the ANC has closed rank. There was a meeting that took place between the ANC MPs, the caucus of the ANC, and there was a push among some around the motion of no confidence in terms of having no confidence against President Jacob Zuma. However, though, the Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, saying that soldiers cannot take commands from another party. Soldiers cannot take their command from another army's commander. So they, as the ANC, will be towing the political line, and they will be protecting President Jacob Zuma. And that's the other thing, is that as the ANC goes into its policy conference rather towards the end of this month, the outcomes of that policy conference will also be quite indicative of whether President Jacob Zuma still enjoys support within the ANC, considering that you'll have the 2 days consultative conference, and whether there will be that push again that some will be calling for the president to step down. But would it be the president stepping down on his own accord? And the other thing about whether the president steps down or not, using a motion of no confidence, is once that motion of no confidence is successful in the president stepping down, that would mean that the entire executive will need to step down. And remember, Chief Justice Mogoeng joking as well, saying, speaking quite frankly and joking about it, saying that there's about 70 members of the cabinet, including the deputy ministers as well, which means that all of them will have to resign, and chances are that that's unlikely to happen. I doubt that the ANC will be going that route.
All right, Aldrin, and should the Concourt, of course, not rule in favor of the UDM, what happens next? Is it back to Parliament, and will they pick up from where they left off when they were, waiting for this Concourt outcome?
Well, certainly it's probably back to the drawing board, what the opposition parties are capable of doing in terms of trying to push for a motion of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma, or trying to remove President Jacob Zuma from office. If you remember when the heads of arguments were being heard here in the court, the oral arguments being heard in court, I spoke to Julius Malema, who said that their target is about 60 ANC MPs who they believe are in support, and saying that even if they are unsuccessful in this court application, there are ANC MPs who will be willing to vote against President Jacob Zuma, even in an open ballot, and make sure that they vote according to what they call, or some would call, their conscience. And some have been dropping names such as Pravin Gordhan and so forth, considering the cabinet reshuffle. But whether that will happen is it's something quite difficult to call, considering, as I've indicated before, that the ANC NEC has already taken a decision, and the Secretary General of the party saying that the party will be closing rank, and they will not allow the opposition to dictate a motion of no confidence against the president. But then, does this also then mean that if you look at a statement made by COSATU, for instance, after they said that President Jacob Zuma should step down, they said a motion of no confidence against the president in Parliament should be brought up by the ANC and not by the opposition parties. Are there members in the ANC, current MPs, part of the ANC's caucus in Parliament, who would be willing to push for a motion of no confidence according to their own accord and say that President Jacob Zuma must step down? That'd be something quite interesting to sit down and watch whether that really would be unfolding. And also, President Jacob Zuma still has about 2 years left in office. What happens over the next 2 years? And what happens after the ANC's elective conference in December, which will be taking place here in December? When we spoke to Matthew Sposa, for instance, who's running to become ANC president, he said, should he become the ANC president, one of the first things that he'll be doing is trying to make sure that President Jacob Zuma is recalled as the president of the country. And whether the NEC that will be elected during the elective conference will be willing to go down that line, it's something that we need to watch and see.
All right, Aldrin, we'll leave it at that for now, but thank you so much for talking to us. Our reporter, Aldrin Sampear, live from the the Constitutional Court. Do stay tuned to Channel 404. The proceedings will start at 10 a.m. this morning.